and Merry Christmas and welcome to another animated look back. The Polar Express is one of the more recent Christmas classics that has come around, which is funny to say considering it came out 9 years ago at the time of this review. Let's face it, Christmas movies are a dime a dozen. Hallmark releases a new one every millisecond, so to create a Christmas movie that people love and watch every single year is no small feat. However, this movie also has its detractors as well, because this was Robert Zemeckis' first attempt to use motion capture to tell an animated story, and because of that, the term Uncanny Valley is used a whole lot when it comes to talking about this movie. But I'm here to see if that is a fair judgment or if people are just being a whole bunch of Scrooges, and maybe let's see if we can understand why people are putting this movie in every single year and see if it deserves that honor. This is my review of The Polar Express. The story follows a young boy who is starting to question whether Santa Claus actually exists. On Christmas Eve, a train appears outside of his window with a conductor who tells him he is heading towards the North Pole.
Well, you coming?
Where?
Why, to the North Pole, of course. This is the Polar Express.
Remember, kids, if a stranger asks you to get into his van, you say no. But if he asks you to get on a train with him, yeah, go right ahead. Anyway, he gets on and makes friends with a young girl and a boy, and we follow them through the train on many adventures as they are heading towards the North Pole, and he has to decide whether he actually believes in Santa or not. So let's start with the main question. How's the animation? Actually, let's not talk about that. Let's skip over that and circle back to it, shall we? I actually want to start with one of the film's odd choices, which is to have Tom Hanks play 5 characters in this film. He plays the boy's dad, he plays the drifter, he plays the conductor, he plays Santa Claus, and he plays the boy himself. And I'm not just meaning he plays the future version of the boy, although he does that as well. Tom Hanks actually was one of the people who did the motion capture for this young boy.
Well, it says here, no photo with the department store Santa this year. No letter to Santa. And you made your sister put out the milk and cookies.
And my question is why? Especially because you hear all of those voices and you just know it's Tom Hanks when you hear it. He has one of the most recognizable voices. And there isn't that much of a difference between a lot of these characters. I mean, the only one that is largely different is his Santa voice, and that's because he goes so low, he sounds like he's in slow motion.
What was that you said?
What was that you said? Yeah, I mean, and even that one, after a little bit of a time you listening to it, you can still hear the Hanks voice in it. Now, I don't want to say that Hanks does a bad job with any of these performances. He does at least decent with all of them, and a couple of them he actually does a really good job. And it's not like he has a bad voice for animation either. I mean, Bedoy, yeah, he's great at voicing animated characters. But still, it is a strange choice, and there's no, like, film reason for this. Like, at first I thought maybe this plays it all into being a dream. That's why everyone has the same voice as his father. But, you know, it's also his own voice. Yeah, this story is being told by him as an adult, reflecting on something that happened to him as a kid, and it's the same voice, so that doesn't make any sense. He can't be imagining his father's voice for all the other voices when it's his own voice too. And it's also just his own voice. It's not like Wizard of Oz where, you know, a bunch of the characters play all their characters in the dream world. So it isn't even that. The only reason I can see you doing this is either 1, saving money, which, come on, you're getting Tom Hanks, you're not saving that much money. Or 2, it's because you want to do one of those trailers where one actor stars multiple times and they say his name a bunch. This Christmas, come watch The Polar Express, starring Tom Hanks.
This train is on a very tight schedule.
Including Tom Hanks.
The North Pole!
With Tom Hanks.
Just remember, the true spirit of Christmas lies in your heart.
And introducing Tom Hanks.
Broken.
Sorry about that, sport.
But this film didn't come out in the 90s, so they didn't even do that! Now, is this a deal breaker for the film? Absolutely not. Of course it is. But it is something that is a bit distracting and a little pointless. And, speaking of distracting things, actually, no, I'm not ready. Let's talk about the story. The movie is based on the short story Polar Express by Chris Van Allsburg. And the whole plot about the movie is about the kid trying to decide whether he believes in Santa Claus or not. Does he feel like it's a fairy tale that he's outgrown, or is it something that is actually there? And I gotta say, when movies and shows do this, it kind of makes me a little iffy, and that's because, well, if you're a young little child, I want you to just plug your ears right now, go la 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 la, don't listen for the next little bit, okay? Because what I have to say, it's just for grown-ups, okay? And the problem I have with this is Santa Claus isn't real! He isn't! Sorry if your mommy never told you, but he's not! Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with having a movie made about Santa and about believing in Santa and him being a fantasy character in your movie. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. The problem I have in this is the whole movie is they treat believing in Santa Claus like an act of faith.
I want to believe. But
you don't want to be bamboozled. You don't want to be led down the primrose path. You don't want to be conned or duped, have the wool pulled over your eyes.
The boy has to believe in him even though he can't see him. And look, I'm all for that message. I'm a Christian man, so I get that message more than most people would.
Making a list,
here!
checking it twice.
Here! Where?
Gonna find out who's naughty and nice.
I can't see
Santa Claus is coming.
But with that being the main plot of the story, this movie isn't going to resonate with adults like it will with kids. I think kids will be able to buy into the magic a little bit more, where adults will just have to suspend their disbelief and whatnot. And you might say, what's the problem with that? What are you getting at? Okay, whenever I see this movie, I just imagine a scenario like this happening.
I believe. I believe.
Me too, Dad. I believe in Santa Claus.
No, there isn't.
What?
Yeah, he's not real. Sorry, I meant to tell you earlier so you can help me move the presents underneath the tree this year, but just forgot. Oh, and don't tell your sister yet because I don't want to ruin the magic for her just yet. Not that magic is real, it's not. And neither is the Easter Bunny or the Tooth Fairy. In fact, while I'm giving you all these hard truths, I'm not your real father. Your mom's a bit of a hoe. Now, once again, this isn't something I can use against the movie as a problem. It's not a problem. It just means the movie is going to be more impactful when you're a child. As an adult, it just doesn't really have the same feel because we just all know the truth. However, now focusing on the actual story, I want to say that this movie has a whole lot of filler in it. I mean, I know the movie is the Polar Express and it's them going to the North Pole, but it is 90% of them going to the North Pole and not a lot of time of them at the North Pole. Now, I'm not saying it isn't nice filler. It's actually really nice to look at. Take this scene. The boy loses this girl's ticket, flies out of the train, we follow it flying through the wilderness, and we go through a pack of wolves, we go through an eagle picks it up, we fly all around, and then we end up right back into the train, and it's very nice, and it's very well animated, and it's very woo, look at us fly. But I have to say, what is the point of it? Look, the scene looks great, but it adds nothing to the characters. Now, to be fair, you could say, well, this is a scene that adds a lot of whimsy into the movie, so you feel like you're on this magical journey. I can see that, but the only problem is, there's enough whimsy in this movie. We have the hot chocolate scene. We have them going down the hill in this roller coaster ride. We have the kid going on the train, them falling off of the train, skiing down the train. We have scenes where them going in the car down into the North Pole and getting down into the workshop area and having to get out of that. And we have them going into the tube and sliding around in these tubes. We have plenty of whimsy. Could be useful if some of it was used to develop the characters. However, I can't blame the film too much because this film was released in 2004, and if you remember what was super big in 2004, 3D! I'm coming out of the screen at you! Woo! It's coming out of the screen! Yeah, this film was one of those that was made for the 3D experience. And I gotta say, unless it's an actual 3D ride, 3D does nothing for me.
Hold on tightly!
And it definitely doesn't translate the same way to the small screen. Not to say that there isn't moments that do leave you with your heart pounding in your chest because of how intense the ride element feels of it, but it just isn't the same. It isn't going to give you one of those gut-in-the-throat feelings unless you see it on like an IMAX screen or something. And okay, I've put off talking about it. Let's talk about the animation. The animation for the Polar Express is its greatest strength and one of its greatest weaknesses. It's a strength because the scenes with the trains are impressive, and you do get amped up, and they're very well done. The scene has very impressive camera work. I like that it does certain things that you couldn't do if this was live action. Like, there's a scene where we are following the boys looking through the keyhole, and we follow the camera through the keyhole and then back through the keyhole, and stuff like that you couldn't do. I like stuff like that when it gets creative with that. The scenes where you're going down Glacier Gulch is like, holy moly! And as I say, it doesn't translate to the same sort of experience if you would in a 3D theater, but it's still very entertaining and very fast-paced and very well done. The scenes that are outside of the train as well, and like when they go through the ice and when they do all that, it's off the tracks and they're trying to get back on. That's very heart-pounding and stuff like that.
Oh no! Brace yourselves!
The caribou look great, although I don't know why they don't call them reindeer. You're in the flippin' North Pole, and caribou and reindeer are the same animal. In any case, all of that looks great. So what's its weakness? The people look creepy.
And then we were on what looked like a frozen lake, but I know it was just an optical illusion caused by moonlight and atmosphere. He said the train was actually on the ice, but I said that was impossible, because you can't put a train track. Hey, where are you going now?
I mean, look, Polar Express was the first film to be fully motion captured, and because of that, the expressions, while moving in the right way that a person speaks, never really feel real. And since the actors are all acting out of a green screen studio, sometimes I feel like they act very nonchalantly to events that should have a bigger reaction. Like, for example, we have this one scene here where the kid is skiing down the back of the Polar Express. And not only is he doing that, there is a tunnel coming up that would absolutely kill him if he doesn't get down to where all the coal is stored. But the person that is carrying him actually disappears into thin air out of nowhere while this is happening, and he jumps at just the right moment to save his life after all that intensity. What is his reaction? Basically nothing! No contemplating like, where the heck did that drifter go? How on earth did I get all the way down here? Oh my gosh, I nearly was killed! I was nearly splattered on the wall like Wile E. Coyote! You know, none of that! He's just like, well, that's something that happened there. Oh well. You know, excuse me! Say, ah! Now, if the animator was doing this scene, I'm sure if he didn't like the way it looked, he could just redraw it and all that, so it could fit the scene. But motion capture is so much more complicated than that, and probably more expensive, so you can't just draw over it. But I think the reason why this didn't catch on is because you're trying to make the characters look real. Animation is not supposed to look real. It's supposed to simulate life. And because they are trying their hardest to make them look real, there's the term the uncanny valley, as I said, it's brought up all the time. But what it is there's something that's not quite right, but you can't put your finger on it. And I think that is true for this movie. When a character smiles, it doesn't feel like a real smile. Have you ever watched those videos that showed you one person real smiling, one person fake smiling? You can tell the fake smile. It is something that instinctively you know, and because of that, all the people's expression look fake. And that is what this whole movie feels like to me with his character animation. Everything feels fake, and not just with the way that it looks, but the way it feels. And that is why the standouts are the shots with the train going down the tracks and the landscapes and the inanimate objects. However, I will give the film a little bit of leeway that this was the very first motion capture animated film. I gotta give it, a little bit of leeway. Like with Toy Story, Andy looks like a dead zombie walking around, but we don't criticize Toy Story for why didn't you have better Andy. It was the first one, so obviously there are going to be some issues. So that is understandable, but I do want to stress that the scenes that are not people-focused look really good. But I gotta ask the question that everybody asks with this movie, why couldn't it have been done in live action? I mean, besides the fact that you're going to need a bigger budget, there's only I don't feel like it was insurmountable to do this in live action. But honestly, my biggest problem with this film isn't the weird faces or the fact that Tom Hanks is doing a bunch of the characters or even that it's about believing in Santa even though Santa isn't real. It's the fact that the characters just do stupid things for no other reason than to move the plot forward. Like how the girl goes into the back car with the conductor to give the other kid some hot chocolate because he didn't get any. The main boy notices that she left her ticket behind that hadn't been punched. So what does he do? The sound thing would be just leave it there and wait for them to come back and remind them when they arrive. But he's like, no, she needs it now. I have to go through the cars and open it up and get it to her now. Why? Because the plot needs to move and it doesn't move if I don't lose the ticket. Do you want a movie where I just sit in this car into the North Pole? No, you want to see me on the back of this thing doing crazy stuff that would most likely kill me. And the thing that makes it so stupid is he was just ridiculing her because she was going to take the hot chocolate over herself. He's like, hey, are you sure you should do that? Maybe you shouldn't. The other kid's like, yeah, you're not allowed to do that without an adult. And they're like, yeah, don't do that alone. Then the conductor comes, he takes her, and he's like, well, I can do it. I don't know why I can do it and she can't. Maybe because I'm a guy. I don't know. It's just like... If he was so sure that you shouldn't do it alone, why is he doing it alone? There is no reason he just had to take the ticket to her right there and then. And then when they get back, the conductor sees that he hasn't punched her ticket and she doesn't have it, and he takes her back to the train car in the back. And the whole fear is like, oh no, he's going to throw her off.
You know what's gonna happen now, don't you? He's gonna throw her off the train. Yeah, he's gonna probably throw her right off the rear platform. It's standard procedure. That way she won't get sucked down under the wheels.
But no, he doesn't do that. He takes her on top of the train and walks her all the way to the front. I am sorry, what? Why? You could have just gone this way and gone through the cars. What world does it make sense to take a child on the top of a moving train that's going up and down hills that is covered with snow and ice and metal and is most likely slippery? And what world does it make sense to go that way? Like, if you wanted to have the scene with the kids on the roof, sure, have him go this way and lock the door behind him so he can't get through, but this way is unlocked, so he decides to go on top of the train. Now he's just a boy doing a dumb thing, which I can understand and relate to, but the conductor, it feels like he just went the wrong way and he was too embarrassed to admit it. He's like, oh no, I totally meant to go this way. All right, up on the roof, little child, we better get going, we're gonna be late. But all of this stuff happens, and it's because the characters in this film are barely characters. Like, I want to say, the best character in the film is the drifter. He has this great scene where when the kid is walking on top of the train and he's trying to find, the girl and the conductor to give her back her ticket. And who is there? The drifter on top of the train. He's just on top of the train in a snowstorm, lighting a campfire, having a cup of joe. It's so cool and mysterious, and I like what they do with this character.
I own this train. Oh, it's like I'm the king of this train. Yeah, the king of the Pole X. In fact, I am the king of the North Pole!
At first I thought he was supposed to be like the kid's inner doubt, he's the one that's saying that Santa isn't real. But actually, he doesn't really do that. He puts the words out there, and the kids will say, it's like, hey, you said it, not me. He's not saying that Santa Claus isn't real, but he's wondering what the kid actually believes and what the possibilities are. And I like that. And so sometimes he helps.
Take a break, kid! How about a nice, good, hot cup of joe?
Sometimes he torments.
Oh, yeah, I know what you are. You're a doubter! A doubter! You don't believe! You're a doubter! You don't believe!
Sometimes he just messes with you. It's just an interesting character, and I like that we never fully get to know what type of person or thing or ghost or angel or whatever he was.
One other thing. Do you believe in ghosts? Interesting.
And then there's the girl that's on the train that the boy meets, and I gotta say, I don't really get what her whole deal is. Like, her character arc throughout the whole movie is the boy keeps acting, "Are you sure?"
I think I'll be okay.
Are you sure?
What about this red one? It looks like a brake. No, he said this was the brake. Are you sure? Are you sure?
And she either freezes or doesn't know what to do, and then at the end of the movie she's like, "Yes, I am." But it's like, are you sure? Is that really that big of a ooh? You know, it's like if somebody said, "Oh, hey, what time is it?" I'd be like, "Oh, 3 o'clock." So I was like, "Oh, are you sure?" I'd be like, "Oh no, it's like 3:15." You know, it's like it's not like I'm like, "Are you sure?" "Oh, I don't know anything anymore."
Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you go, girl. Women power. You are sure of this obvious solution. However, I gotta ask, what changes throughout the movie for her? He keeps asking her, "Are you sure?" and she freezes and doesn't know and is uncertain. But at the end of the film, he asks her, "Are you sure?" and then she says she is. But what changed throughout the course of the movie? Like, there's a moment in the film where she needs to stop the train, and she says, "This one's a brake," and the kid's like, "Well, what about this one? This one looks like a brake." She's like, "No, it's this one," but then she's not sure. Now, what happens is he eventually listens to her and she pulls the right one. But what if he pulled the wrong one? What if the train started to accelerate and then he eventually pulled the brake? And then she's like, "I doubted myself. I was right, but then I doubted myself. Why did I do that?" And then she learns from that, and the next time when she says, "Yes, I am sure," she is confident in her leadership and in her ability. Then that would at least be something, but she's just like, not confident, and confident for some reason. Now that being said, she's never annoying or insufferable or anything like that. She's just the blank slate. Her one character trait that I could find is that she doesn't want anyone to be left out, so she takes the hot chocolate to the kid in the back, or doesn't want him to be left on the train. Beyond that, I don't really know what her character is. They say at the end that she's a good leader, but she wasn't really much of a leader, just more didn't want anyone to be left out. That's nothing compared to the third kid. He is just poor. That's his only defining characteristic.
And then Santa comes and leaves presents under our Christmas trees.
Christmas just doesn't work out for me.
I will say this, at least the over-the-top nerdy kid in this movie is over-the-top nerdy, and I get that about his character. He's a know-it-all that thinks he knows it all, but doesn't actually know it all.
Train. Do you know what kind of train this is? Well, do ya?
Of course. It's a magic train. We're going to the North Pole.
Ah, I know it's a magic train. Actually, it's a Baldwin 284 S3 class Berkshire-type steam locomotive.
Now, when it comes to Tom Hanks playing the conductor, this is the role that fits right into his regular wheelhouse. He gets angry in the same way Tom Hanks always gets angry. He sounds whimsical the same way Tom Hanks always sounds whimsical. So in that regard, he plays the character fine, but it doesn't really leave much of an impact on me. And then his character builds up to his final line, which is supposed to be this huge, inspiring moment, and it's complete and utter gibberish.
One thing about trains, it doesn't matter where they're going. What matters is deciding to get on.
You thought that was deep? That wasn't deep.
Yeah, that makes absolutely no sense. It's like when you have a friend that's trying to sound deep. He's like, if only the world loved each other a lot more, there'd be a lot less wars. It's like, oh, you're so inspiring. Now, looking at the boy, him being our main character, he is supposed to be the one that we relate to and that we can put ourselves into his shoes. And for that, he does it fairly well. And I would say that just because that's all his character is. This boy is the blankest of all blank slates. When Taylor Swift says that she's got a blank space, it's really just a picture of this kid. He has no personality traits beyond the fact that he doesn't know if he believes in Santa or not. Is he brave, silly? Is he growing up too fast or not fast enough? I don't know. I don't know him as a character. I don't even know his name. He doesn't even have a name. In the credits, he's credited as Hero Boy. That says right there that he wasn't even meant for you to really relate to or to have a personality. He's just someone that you can put yourself in their shoes and that's it. I mean, seriously, why not just give him a name? It doesn't have to be anything smart or clever. Just call him Billy.
My name is Billy.
Right. Poor kid gets a name, but no, not our main character. That makes sense. But more importantly, his character arc is he doesn't know if Santa is real or not. That is what he's struggling with. He has doubts and thinks that this whole experience might just be a dream.
Are you saying that this is all just a dream?
You said it, kid, not me.
But in the end, he decides to believe. He puts all of his doubts aside, he shoves all of that away, and he hears the jingling of the bell as he finally believes in Santa Claus, and he does it before he's even able to fully see him. Yeah, it's great. One question. What changed? Why does he believe now? What is the difference between now and the conversation he had in the train with the Drifter? There has been nothing in the movie to suggest that his character has gotten new information or has felt new feelings on the matter. Just all of a sudden he decides to change his mind. Sure, he's gone on a few adventures on this train. Absolutely. But you know what he did most of the time on those? Screamed. Ah! You know, maybe I believe in Santa Claus. Ah! That line that I added, that wasn't in there. The only line that we get to help support this is this one from the conductor.
But sometimes seeing is believing. And sometimes the most real things in the world are the things we can't see.
But that line was like a half hour ago. We've had no more development on his character arc since then. In the end, the Polar Express is an experience. And that is why it works so well on IMAX screens with 3D graphics. With you feeling like you were on this train, you could put yourself more into the head of the character because you're going and experiencing the same thing he is. But without that, all you're left is with incomplete character arcs. And I'm sorry to say this, but I don't think the voice actor did that great of a job. Not blaming the whole thing on him, and it's not the worst I've ever heard, but it just sounds very, I'm not following the character through the voice. It just sounds like he's just saying the lines. I just don't feel the emotion with it. Like, listen to his line when he's like, I believe. He's like, okay, I believe.
Okay. I believe. I believe.
I mean, do you? It sounds like you're pretending to cry so you don't have to go to school. Now, since I have raged on this movie for the majority of this review, some might say, hey, so do you think this is completely worthless? No, I would say it actually has some pretty nice twists to the Santa lore that I really enjoy and wish other movies would do. I mean, someone finally fixed the giving gifts in one night plot hole by just having Santa having the ability to stop time.
No pushing! No pushing, but let's not dilly-dally. It's 5 minutes to midnight.
Hey, what gives? It was 5 minutes till midnight 4 minutes ago.
Exactly!
I also like that the only people who can hear Santa's bells are the people who believe in Santa. That's a nice little twist on it, you know? Makes it so anybody who does hear anyone landing on the roof is someone who believes in Santa. I like that for some reason Santa has a lightsaber whip. That's kind of cool. I even like the elf scenes that we get to see where they're deciding if a kid gets put on the naughty list or not.
I didn't do
It's
it.
almost Christmas, huh? We'll cut the kid a break. But you put him on a check twice list for next year.
The North Pole, while it isn't my favorite version of the place, it isn't horrible. I like that the tree that is in the North Pole, there is a compass around it that every point points south. That's a cute little thing. That's a nice little touch. And I gotta say, the music done by Alan Silvestri is so good. It really makes you feel like you're going on a magical journey to the North Pole, and it really, really works. I love it all. But in the end, I gotta say that I don't really feel like the Polar Express holds that deep of a place in my heart. There are a whole lot of uncanny valley looks that just look weird throughout the film. It's filled with so much filler because its source material is a kid's book, and I just don't feel like the characters go through any real arcs or anything like that. The main character just doesn't believe for a while, and then he does. That's not an arc, that's a straight line. But I can see why some people would like this film. The journey that the character goes through is a really exciting one, especially if you were a young kid when you saw this. But as I say, I just don't have a special place in my heart for this movie. I don't hate it, I don't despise it, it just doesn't do a whole lot for me. And so that's why I'm giving The Polar Express a 4 out of 10. The animation holds it back, there's a lot of filler in this movie, and the characters are not really interesting. The only reason that you would really want to watch this movie is the events that happen in the movie. The action set pieces with the Polar Express and the big wide shots. And those are handled well, but for me, those are not enough to carry the whole movie. I do give it a little bit of slack for being the first motion capture film, but not enough to give it any more than a 4 out of 10. It just doesn't hook me in. The songs don't hook me in. I didn't even really talk about the songs just because I didn't really have a whole lot to say to them. They were all pretty much filler and didn't add anything to the story. So those are my feelings on The Polar Express, and I'm sorry if this was a movie that was from your childhood that you really enjoyed. You know what? What can I say? I didn't mean to be bah-humbugging over your entire Christmas experience, but these are just my true feelings. And also, if you believed in Santa Claus at the start of this review and don't believe him at the end, well, what can I say? Why are you watching reviews at your age anyway? But you can tell your parents it's all my fault. But in any case, I am wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And on my next animated look back, this one I am not putting up for a vote. I've just decided to pick this one myself. I could put it up for a vote, but I'm pretty sure this one would win anyway, because in honor of an actor who I had great respect for passing away recently, I thought it was time to take a look at the only one of these animated films of his that went to theaters. Batman: Mask of the Phantasm is my next review. Thanks for watching, everybody, and be sure to join me on the next animated look back. Merry Christmas.